Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Story Darlings podcast. I'm Sandra.
And I'm Tara.
I can't stop laughing now that we're talking about your fingers.
My fingers, they just, this one always goes in. I don't have the strength or something. I don't know.
You do the finger countdown, and then I start talking, and I feel like I can't count down because I'm looking at your fingers trying to keep measure, and it doesn't work. But we're here, everyone, and we're here, and what are we talking about?
Surprisingly, we're talking about a super serious book, Exodus, which is book 2 from the Ravenhood series by Kate Stewart.
I love this book. I think this is my favorite of the trilogy.
We do find out a lot of answers in this book, so it is really good, which, spoiler alert, guys, if you have not read this book, do not listen to this podcast yet, because you do find out a lot of answers in this book.
I appreciate your enthusiasm for listening if you have not read the book, but don't do that to yourself. This is one of those books that is so rewarding once you get to the very end of it, just because of particular characters' growth arcs throughout what happens in this book, which is so much.
But it wrecks you along the way, so you might want to stop reading because you're so wrecked, but do not let this one be a do not finished or did not finish.
And if you haven't listened to the Flock episode, definitely go back and listen to that. This is Tara and my second time reading the Ravenhood series by Kate Stewart. And emotionally impact speaking, how did it hit you? Or did it hit you again?
Some parts hit me less. There's a big one that the first time I just could not. I had to put the book down for a little while because there's a part that I was so mad, I was so hurt, I couldn't pick it back up for a little while.
Devastated?
Yes. And that part did not hit me as hard because I knew it was coming. I could prep myself the entire first book and the second book because I couldn't remember where it happened, but I knew it was coming.
Mm-hmm.
But then other parts hit me harder.
Yes.
Specifically towards the end, because I forgot all of those happened because I was so devastated by the first thing that I feel like I read the end of the book in this haze.
I can't recall. Are you listening to or are you reading the physical book again?
I read the physical book this time.
I've been listening. As you said, there are certain parts where it just felt less of an emotional hit, and definitely those other side scenes. I was surprised how heavy those hit. This book takes you through a roller coaster of emotions. There are very bad things that happen, irrevocable things, and there's a lot of makeover type of things that happen with Cecilia. She goes through this entire growth arc and this evolution of redefining herself, which is so satisfying to see. I mean, we get closure on the Roman story, on Sean and Dom. We get answers about this third character that's introduced at the end of the first book, this Frenchman, the wolf, and then as well as Tyler and things like that as well.
We also get their parents, like Dom's parents.
So just like the first book, that is all I'm going to speak to, what happens. And we are now giving you a spoiler alert, and we're going to talk about the book just kind of willy-nilly wherever we want to go with it this time. You want to begin?
So we find out that the Frenchman is actually Dom's brother, which I may have just given away with we get their parents. Whoops. His name is Tobias. Ezekiel Tobias.
They share a mom, right?
Yes. And Tobias's dad was abusive, and so she left him with Beau, who is the Irish. And I forgot that he was French-Irish.
Mm.
And so he had red hair, and I think I just glossed right over that. I don't know why. I love that. I love the juxtaposition of the dark-haired French person, quintessential French look, to the point that even Cecilia calls him out because he says his dad is moody, and she's like, oh, apple.
I had forgotten about Beau too, though.
He's the one that is Dom's dad and the one who raised Dom and Tobias from the age of Tobias being 6 and Dom being born, obviously. Which, by the way, the scenes of Dom coming home and Tobias hating him and putting him in the box and out in the trash with just a can of formula cracked me up because that is something an older sibling would do.
I see the humor in it. I thought that was cute too, but it also was so sad knowing what happens
Mhm.
with Dom and how Dom thought about his future in the first book when Cecilia asked him, "What do you picture for the future?" And he just replied, "Nothing." That comes full circle about midway through this
Mhm.
book. It still hurt. Obviously, not as much as the first
Mhm.
time reading it, but there's that period after Dom dies and Cecilia is existing. And the chapter starts where she's talking about there's a part in a Twilight movie where Bella is sitting in the chair after Edward has left her and she cannot function. She's a shell of a person. She's basically catatonic, right? Just not functioning at all. And that's how Cecilia felt. I remember sobbing and sobbing after all of
Mhm.
this happened. It was such a roller coaster.
The roller coaster for me with Dom's death was shortly before she was marked, and I forgot that that happened altogether.
I did too.
It was like a haze around Dom's death, like
Drugged and marked.
drugged
Branded.
and marked. And she's marked with a tattoo of a raven on her back, which, I mean, sounds kind of badass, but not.
It's on her shoulder blades, just like Tobias's are.
Mhm. Which we do get answers for that, and Tobias is the one who had her marked. Because of this being marked, she is rightfully a little angry with everybody because she doesn't know who did it. And she throws a little hissy fit. She slashes all their tires, she yells at them, and then she goes on this little joyride. And they can't find her, and she goes back to her house, and all hell breaks loose because they knew somebody was coming after her, and they were trying to find her. Dom shows up in her room with a gun in his back, like of his pants, and she freaks out because she thinks he's there to hurt her, which, poor Dom.
I know. How would you
But
ever think that of Dom?
but given the like recent history, yes, I could think that of Dom because he was none too happy with her.
He wasn't happy, but it's almost like when a relationship ends and you start second guessing everything that happened, right? You look at
Hmm.
it through a new narrative. And that's what she did. And she kind of forgot about or willingly erased all of the good times and how much she meant to him. So she kind of just puts that on the back burner. But all of the context around this is she hasn't had any contact from Dom and Sean in almost a year. And turns out it's because Tobias sent them to France on some bullshit errand to keep a physical distance while he wormed his way in, for lack of a better word, and got closer to Cecilia. But in his defense, we also learned that he has known of Cecilia since she was a child and has always been drawn to her. Yeah, he's like 31 years old. She's 20 years old in this book. And so there's a little bit of an age gap there. But he remembers seeing Cecilia in the library whenever he would go to pick up Dom, and Dom was, hitting the books in the library. And Cecilia would smart off to her dad and steal a copy of the Thornbirds. He kind of developed this idea of Cecilia in his head too. And he willingly made a decision to keep her a secret from everybody else. And so
Hmm.
we see this back and forth from the first book, Dom and Sean trying to keep her a secret from him, Tobias, and then it's reversed. And so this scene that Tara brought up halfway through with the fallout of all this shit happening is just, don't they walk in, like Sean and Dom together walk in on them post sex just outside?
Hmm.
Oh, it was
And
so
they are not
painful.
happy.
No. I mean, rightfully so, because in their mind, they've been away the whole time. They've still been thinking about her.
But they left her with no information.
Is it really
Their
all their
their
fault,
inability
though?
to, yes, I blame them for this because a little communication could have gone a long way. But even Dom says it was Sean's idea to earn back Tobias's trust to not tell her anything about what was going on.
This sounds like the stupidest idea ever.
It's the wrong decision, Sean. Wrong decision. Like, some information would have helped her, I think. I can see where she was coming from. You didn't give me any information. You couldn't have sent me a little postcard and said, hey, we're fine, and like
Bienvenue in
let her
France.
put some pieces together of what's happening. Like, send her a postcard from France. She'll put it together. It doesn't even have to say
She might go to
anything.
France. This dynamic with Cecilia and Tobias, it starts off as this very that's a term, enemies to lovers kind of relationship between the two of them. And he keeps referring to her as a little girl, just immature. That's how he sees her, like a little party girl that gets around, sleeps with the Brotherhood. But then Cecilia, at the end of the story, oh my god, she went through an evolution and just totally recreated herself and stands on her own 2 feet and is like, fuck everybody else.
I think Tobias wants to see her that way.
That's kind of who he is. It's his equal, right? Where
Well,
she
no,
is at the
I
end.
think he wants to see her as a little child still,
Oh, yeah.
because I think that's his way of keeping himself away from her. Because
Mm.
I don't think he wanted to fall for her in any sense of the imagination, because he knew that his brother loved her. He didn't know how deeply his brother loved her, but he knew there was something there, right?
I mean,
And I don't think
yes.
he wanted to do that. There's even the scene where they first get together, and she can see it on his face that he was trying to ruin her, but in the process, he ruined himself too, because he felt more than he wanted to.
Mutual destruction.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't mean for it to be mutual destruction. He meant just for her to be screwed over and leave.
I'm trying to think back to what my initial impression of Tobias was the first time I read this, because I want to say that I was off put by him because I love Dom and Sean so much. And this second book, Exodus, starts off, it carries up, right where the first book ended. So they are still, he has her pinned to the ground and she's just like, who the fuck are you? And isn't this when she digs into his pocket to take his driver's license to learn who he is, like his identity?
No, I think
Or
that's
no,
the
that's a
second
later
meeting.
scene. Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
second
I
meeting.
think that's a little bit later, because she throws him for a little bit of a loop there.
Yeah, but there's still, even in that first scene, there's all of this sexual tension between them. And I can see myself not liking Tobias the first time because fuck, bro, if you're the older brother to Dominic and supposedly you were so close to Sean and Dom growing up too, what are you doing allowing
Mhm.
yourself to get this close to Cecilia? So I
Well, and
was so bitter about it.
we didn't even know that he was Dom's older brother in that first meeting. He hadn't
No.
even told her that yet. And Dom didn't even say he had a brother. She was so in the dark with all of it. Again, if they'd even just told her that Tobias was his brother, maybe that first meeting would have gone a little differently.
Yeah, right. But it's not just Sean and Dom. Everybody kept Tobias a secret in the Ravenhood. He's like the boogeyman that no one wants to talk about, like John Wick
Well,
style.
they keep everything a secret. It's not even just Tobias. They keep what they're fighting for, even till the very, very, very fucking end of this book.
Oh, yeah. And you see how far it goes.
Mm-hmm. All of that had been a secret. Again, shit, like this would have been such a short book if they had just told some of their secrets ahead of time.
I'm still so torn post Dominic on Sean and Dominic's action. Well, especially Tobias's actions and Cecilia's, because you have the Apple Festival scene too, right? There was the Apple Festival scene in the beginning where she's going around, can't find them anywhere. Their house has been, posted for sale. They're not at the garage anymore. No proof that they ever existed. So she's in some kind of mental state. And so she decides to spur the moment, just go to the Apple Festival. And they're playing the music, the band is on stage, everyone starts dancing. And this is when Sean comes up behind her and just is trying to cheer her up. She's lost a lot of weight, she's thin, she's ashen. And he's just like, you need to live, smile, laugh, enjoy things again. And he's dancing with her. And
And
then she sees Dom.
that's the other thing that irritates me. They're telling her to live, they're telling her to smile, they're telling her all of these things. And Sean's whole thing the entire time is do what you want and don't regret it. And they couldn't even give her, hey, we'll be back in a year.
I feel like
Because
Tobias
they
should be
knew when
off.
they were fucking coming back.
But did they think that it was going to be Tobias, though? I think that's the difference, right?
They didn't think it was going to be Tobias.
Yeah. Anyone but Tobias.
But would it have been? They loved her so much, I don't think that they would have been okay with anybody.
I mean, I feel like they would have thought her attempting to date, she did go on a few dates that went nowhere.
If she fell in love, though, I do not think that they would have been okay with it.
I think they would have tried to get her back. I think there would have been some funniness there, trying to get her back. Jealous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Tobias, they couldn't, and
But
they knew they couldn't.
that's not this kind of story though, because in this story, Dom fucking died. He got shot multiple times and died in her arms. That's what we got.
Saving her, because he shows up in her room. Back to the scene that destroyed us.
From a
He
tip
shows
off
up in her room.
from her father, by the way,
Mhm.
because there's some connection there in the past. So it was a tip off from Roman that led everyone, hey, Miami's showing up at his house. We need to get there and help Cecilia.
So there was not a past connection, but Roman knew exactly what was happening. He knew who Dom and Sean were. He knew who Tobias was. And that is the reason he backed off, because he knew once she was under their protection, she was good, and he didn't need to stay there. That's why he moved to Charlotte again, to let her have her time with them, and he knew she was safe. And so when he didn't have enough protection for both her and him, he knew he needed to call them to protect her. And so he did. But so Dom shows up, he has this gun, she freaks out, and he throws the gun in the hallway, and then he gets shot trying to save her. Again, communication would have been great here.
Their secrets killed them.
They kind of kick her back out again, and Tobias tells her, don't ever come back. And she's just put off into the wind, like she never existed, never mattered, nobody else existed to her. She's just supposed to forget all three of them. I was a little bit pissed for her in that moment too.
I mean, if you're her, you feel like you've been used and just disregarded like trash. They treated her like a child, like she wasn't privy to the information that they were privy to, and they still never fully let her in. And I think that's what hurts, is she felt very vulnerable and was open to all of these new things with them, and they didn't really at the end of the day do the same for her. Dom and Sean walked up and discovered her and Tobias together sexually, and I think that's when Tobias was going to confess that he was falling in love with her, right? And she is feeling the same way too. It's so complicated. It's like a goddamn soap opera. I'm reading these pages like that's what it feels like. After she is taken out of the house and it is the cavalry has arrived to take down 10 cars deep of all these Miami people that have shown up, guns blazing. We never see what happens, the aftermath of that house. We know that they lost a few Raven brothers. We lost Dom. But after that, I mean, she just no contact whatsoever with them. And so when we meet her again, she is now, 20 years old? And this is the age that she can inherit part of the business from her father. So that's the Charlotte meeting, is signing off on all that paperwork. She did all her due diligence working at the, Horner Industries factory and all of that. And so now she is a multimillionaire, very wealthy, can do whatever she wants. And so she decides to go into school. And this is when she starts pursuing like her business degree and trying to date again.
She has the Charlotte meeting before she gets branded, because that's part of her falling in love with Tobias, is he listened in on that meeting and he got the full story that her father didn't care about her, that it was just a transaction for him in that meeting. And so he felt really bad for her. And she's like, I've been telling you this whole time he didn't care. Why is this a surprise to you? But we find out that that's not exactly the case later on. But at that time, that was the feeling.
How do you feel about Roman now that his story has ended too? Because he did by the end of the book too.
I think that these people need therapy to learn how to communicate. Because again, communication would have been great. Because the whole damn thing started over an accident, an accidental fire that was caused by Cecilia's mom. And because Roman loved her, he hid the truth, which then made the people who were going against him think that he killed those two people in cold blood for going against him. Just some honesty, some communication would have solved it. Dom and Sean and Tobias would not have grown up the way they did. Cecilia would not have grown up the way she did. Communication. But I can understand why that communication wasn't there, because Roman was trying to protect her and didn't want anything bad to happen to her, being a 19-year-old girl who is like 3 months pregnant at the time, and he loved her, so he basically just sent her away. And then after she had the baby, he came to visit and found a gun that was planted by Delphine in her crib. So there's a different juxtaposition there, because Delphine is the one who threatened her life as a baby. And when she came back as an adult, not knowing any of this, she went to help Delphine. And I wonder if Delphine knew who she was, if the Brotherhood had let her in on the fact that Cecilia was Roman's daughter, and thus the one that she threatened, and in her later years knew that that wasn't the right move. But I don't know.
It completely flipped my take on who Delphine was. After that part, I was like, you're a fucking bitch. Who does that? Who threatens the
Who
life of
threatens a
an
little
innocent
baby?
baby? Yeah, exactly. And kind of the same thing, you talk about communication with Roman, or lack of communication, I should say. And it was definitely a selective communication. The man knows, I think if he wanted to communicate, he could. He left her a letter with the news story and all the shit that happened. A part of me also thinks that he was just trying to protect Cecilia's image, like how she thought about her mother. And you do see that after Cecilia finds out the truth, she is pissed off at her mom. And it's almost like Roman and her mother are now flipped in her mind, how she thinks about them, because her mom lied and hid so much from her. And it's just like, oh, well, and also in the first book, the fact that she kicked her out because she has a boyfriend that didn't want Cecilia living with her, like, what kind of mother lets that happen too, though? You know what I mean?
But
Like,
that's not even what happened. That's just what she fucking told her, because she took her there because she was wanting Roman back. She thought that they could get back together now that things had died down, and that was her last ditch effort to get with Roman again.
and then Roman wouldn't, because he still thinks that it was his job to protect her, because however long these people are going to hold a grudge.
Yeah, and so then he let Cecilia stay with him, I think, because he built that house from the dreams of Cecilia's mom and him. And so I think he wanted that house to have some of the love he had dreamt it to have, right? But he was towing this thin line of make everybody else think I don't care about this girl, and getting some of that happiness he wanted.
Poor Cecilia. You have Roman acting like he doesn't love her or care about her. You have Sean and Dom behind her back trying to pretend like they don't care about her to hold face with Tobias. Then you have Tobias trying to pretend like he doesn't like her because of he knows he's doing the no-no behind Sean and Dom's back. Everyone is doing one
Pretending
thing
they
with
don't
her
give a shit.
and saying another. And that's just got to be such a mind fuck for her. It's like, no wonder she went off the deep end, disappeared, and reinvented herself and came back just like with a middle finger to everybody.
And publicly calling her a whore at every turn.
Yeah, that would hurt. Yeah.
So, yeah, I didn't like anybody during this book.
Second time around, the first time around, it was just such a raw reaction to the loss and like the time that was robbed from all of them in sorting through their issues and getting back on a better foot with each other. This time around, it was just, it still hurt, but it was frustrating.
It was frustrating because you knew after you got all the answers that it didn't have to end this way. It didn't have to be this way. They didn't have to take the path that they did. They could have trusted her enough to tell her at least a little bit of the story.
How old is Cecilia when she is, prologue of Flock, book 1, when
26.
she's driving back? 26 years old. She's 26 years old. She's just broken up with her fiance, who, by the way, showed up at Triple Falls to fight for her with the British accent. I know.
Okay,
I know
and
you like that.
She shows up with Ryan too. And don't get me wrong, I like Colin, but damn. Ryan.
Damn, Ryan is right. And the dude is in love with her. She's friends
and is open about it. And he is hilarious and sarcastic and just my type of guy. But the line that got me was when he was describing Colin, and he's like, damn girl, even I had a hard on for him. And
he's fun.
knowing that he was the boyfriend right before Colin.
Mm-hmm.
that he was open enough to share even that with her.
Yeah.
After all of these people are just hiding shit and keeping secrets and making her feel like she is worthless and she doesn't mean anything to them, Ryan is so forthcoming, such a fresh, like, breath of fresh air, and is very open with the fact that he is in love with her and has been willing to do shit just because it makes her happy, like
Mm-hmm.
letting her marry and being there when she marries Colin, because he thought Colin made her happy. But the second he didn't think Colin made her happy, he was like, I'm here. I'm still in love with you.
The fact that Tobias was able to pick up on how in love with Cecilia Ryan was, and she didn't put it together truly, or she didn't acknowledge it until Tobias said something about it. It's just Ryan. There was that scene after Tobias and Cecilia kind of race down the street. She gets herself arrested, right? She's like smoked a lot of weed and gotten arrested. Ryan gets her out of jail. She gets into the car. He turns to her and he says, "You smell like weed and teenage angst." And that's just the kind of person that he is. And I loved him so much. Like, you see the appeal of Ryan, you see the appeal of Dom and Sean in their own ways. You see the appeal of Tobias. I even saw the appeal in Colin, like coming to Triple Falls to fight for her, not really knowing where she was coming
Who he
from
was
and
fighting?
wanting. Yeah, he was wanting to understand where she was coming from and like give her another chance to try and work it out because he loved her so much. And then he gets
Even
himself punched
after
in the nose.
even after she told him that she masturbated after they got done
Oh, dagger to the
thinking of
heart.
somebody else, I was I was like, okay,
I was
that was
like,
done.
damn, girl,
That's
did you
done.
have to say that much of a naked truth, ugly truth?
Yeah. But he still comes because he's still so in love with her. And these two, you said she had such a growth arc. She does, because she went from three people who would tell her nothing, give her no information, to Ryan, who is an open fucking book, and Colin, who also is very communicative. He tells her how he's feeling, what he's feeling, why he's feeling that way. And he's still there for her even after she communicates how she's feeling in in the most open way too.
And yet, he is not the one that she wants.
The heart wants what the heart wants, but
Uh-huh.
damn, I would have picked Ryan over Tobias. And that's like,
But you know where she's coming from too,
I
right?
do. I
There's
do.
always those people from your past that you have that what if I could go back and confront XYZ? What would have happened? And that's where she's at. And she's not willing to compromise any part of her life going forward until she gets those things answered. So it's weird in this book seeing how she is the one actively pursuing Tobias and trying to pin him down and get him to admit to how he feels. And then he just refuses to. I mean, we get a couple bombshells dropped on us with Exodus. One being Tobias is with fucking Alicia, which hurts, right? And then the fact that Sean ended up in a monogamous marriage to Tessa, the dressmaker that she was such good friends with, who now
Okay,
hates her.
that pissed me the fuck off so bad, because Sean is the one who was so mad at her for not waiting for him for this year that he was gone, which I understand. He had his reasons. I get it. But she didn't know his reasons, and he wouldn't give her any information about this, right? If you put the math together, it has been 6 years since Dom died when she's coming back. His son, Sean's son, with Tessa is 4, right? Maybe 4.5, we don't know. But you take 4 away. That's 2 years. Chick is pregnant for almost a year, right? So now it's 1 year. Sean didn't fucking even wait a year to move on to a monogamous relationship where he's married and has children after giving her so much crap for not waiting for him for fucking year with no information. Sean had all of the information. He's the one who fucking sent her away.
Devil's advocate
Sorry.
here. Yeah. No, in defense of Sean, it was actually like 8 months from Apple Festival where she danced with him to Sean and Dom walking in on her and Tobias post-sex. So 8 months there.
Well, even the Apple
But-
Festival didn't
but-
give her any information.
No, they were still very
Like, he'd been
mysterious
cutting her
about it.
out for, like, months at that point.
Trying to as well. There was a lot of the back and forth and flock when will he, won't he? A lot of that. So I understand her frustration there. But also, another thing in play with him moving on and being with Tessa after a year, maybe, is now anything with Cecilia is kind of tarnished by Dom's death, right? All of this stuff was always around Cecilia. She was the eye of the tornado here because they were trying to help her, and that's when Dom got himself killed. And you know that Cecilia probably blamed herself for a long time, no matter what everybody was telling her, because Tobias, I think he says at a certain point that he never blamed her. He blamed Dom primarily for his stupid actions, and then blamed himself for all of that going into play in the first place. So I understand that Sean would have wanted to move on, separating himself from something that impacted him so deeply to the point where he named his son after him, right? So it's like, I see where he's coming from, but I too was very angry and pissed off and hurt, especially from him because no one can hold him down. Sean's Sean. He's kind of a free spirit, and then all of a sudden he's tied down to Tessa, and then Tessa hates Cecilia, and then we learn she hates Cecilia because of how hard it was for her to get Sean to open up to her because of everything that happened with Cecilia and Dom.
But he opened up within a year. It wasn't that fucking hard. He hasn't opened up to Cecilia, and he'd been with her for over a year at that point.
You know when you have a
Bull
relationship,
fucking shit, Sean.
you know when you have a relationship with someone and they can't do these simple things of being open, being trustworthy, communicating, and then it seems like in their next relationship after you, they're able to do those things. It's like you were the stepping stone. You were the lesson that gave the next woman one less
You trained
problem.
him.
Yes, you got him ready for the next person. It almost feels like that type of situation. Which
It does.
it still hurt seeing this play out because you can still see all of the love that exists there between them. That's
And you
never
find
going
out
to go away.
that he is the one who left the necklace too.
Do we find that for sure? I feel like it was still left very ambiguous in this.
Well, she says, like, so he put it in the car. He gives her Dom's car.
Did he put it in
Well,
the car,
Dom didn't
or was
put it
it
in the car.
already in the car?
Well, she says he gave me the last piece of his love or something like that. He gave me. And she's looking back at Sean at that moment. And to me, that, I don't know, I took it like Dom gave her his life as his sign of love, right? Sean gave her the necklace as his sign of love. And then now we're waiting on Tobias to give her his sign of love. In my mind, that is how it played out.
I still don't know how I feel about it.
I could have been down with Sean getting with somebody new because I understand the relationship is now tarnished. And I can even get behind the monogamous relationship because the person he was polyamorous with was Dom. We never hear of him having another polyamorous relationship except for with Dom. He trusted Dom that much, right? So I can even get behind that. I, however, cannot get behind the fact that you're telling me that it was so hard for you to pull him out of this situation in the literally 8 months it probably took you to get pregnant.
She got pregnant real fast.
I'm sorry, but no, that's not a long time, considering it's taken fucking Cecilia 3 years to get the same situation or less situation. So I could have got behind this relationship if, say, little Dom was like 2 and it took a couple years for him to move past Dom's death, the loss of Cecilia, and everything that happened so quickly right there.
Tara's very heated.
But it just, I feel like it minimized the love that Sean had for her.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And I don't think that that was fair.
I'm trying to side with him on this, but in real life, if this happened to me, I would be so hurt. And as you said, feel like what we had was minimized by how quickly he moved on and was able to start a life.
It's hard, and I think that this is one of the reasons that the death of Dom didn't hit me as hard this time. But it's hard to believe they were so in love with her if he could move on that quickly. It's hard to believe that this was such an intense love affair on his side if he could turn around and move on that quickly and in that big of a way, forming a whole new family, right? It's not just he moved on to another relationship like Alicia for Tobias.
It almost cheapens it somehow because I start thinking this is the rabbit hole that women's minds go down. Oh, if Tobias hadn't told them I was off limits, would they have been as interested in me, or would I have been like the other factory girl's daughter who they had their way with and just discarded? Would I have been just like that type of thing? So I do see what you're saying, where it cheapens what you thought you had with them.
And you can't tell me in this tiny ass town that they've never met Tessa before.
Oh yeah, they totally have.
Like, did he have a thing for Tessa and he couldn't do it because he didn't want to share Tessa? But now that Dom's out of the way, he doesn't have to share.
This is where Tara's mind is going.
Like,
I have all the feelings for Cecilia because she comes back 26 years old. She feels like she's in this stronger place. Her short, edgy hair, dressed well, very wealthy woman now. She's making the sale of Horner Industries to this CEO of Exodus Inc., who turns out to be Tobias. And she's making the sale to him, and he wants no communication with her whatsoever because he's in denial. He's hiding behind, oh, I'm with Alicia now, which is just such bullshit. There was that dinner scene where Cecilia's like, well, I guess I'm going to go get some food and read a book. And she goes to dinner in the restaurant by herself, sits down, looks up, and realizes she's sitting adjacent to Alicia and Tobias. So she's trying to get her dinner to go. And this is something that would happen to you or me because we're fucking clumsy and moronic when we're uncomfortable in a public situation. And she spills her drink. Wine is spilled all over, all over the place. So then she's trying to clean it up, uses what she thinks is a napkin to mop it up. Oh no, it's the tablecloth. Pulls the tablecloth to where now her food's on the floor, broken dishes, food everywhere. So by this time, if Tobias hadn't noticed she was sitting right there, he's damn well noticed her now. So then the fucking tablecloth lights on fire because there was an open flame candle on the table. So her book burns. Tobias comes over to help her. And this is her, Cecilia, just being at her low point because everyone has moved on, seemingly. And she is here with dinner and wine and a burnt book.
And a book that means a lot to her because it's the book that she stole the first time she met Tobias, and a book that she sees herself in because she fell for a guy that she wasn't supposed to, and he didn't choose her. And that is basically what happens in the book. The girl falls for the clergyman, and they have their moment, but then he doesn't choose her. And basically, it's the bird who goes and finds its thorn
to impale itself
on.
Very tragic. I have not read the book. It's on my TBR still. I do plan to read it. It's on Kindle Unlimited if you're curious to read it. But I have not read that one, but hopefully soon. So she's just at this low point. And then we fast forward more time when she's moved to another. Yeah. And this is when we find out, okay, there was Afternoon Delight in the first book. There was the song Cecilia by Simon and Garfunkel. Now there's K by Cigarettes After Sex, which was her playing it on blast at the end of Flock. And now, when she's moved to this new place, started this restaurant, is being a waitress in this restaurant, she comes out to her car after shift because she's just seen Tyler on television in the President of the United States security detail. This is how far up the Ravenhood Brotherhood has gone. And so she's going out to her car, And this is when she notices that something is up with her car, right? And she turns it on and it's blasting K by Cigarettes After Sex. And it becomes like their anthem almost in a way, right? Tobias and Cecilia.
Well, that's how they met, because she was
Mm-hmm.
blasting that when he was in his little field.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he
Which
came
is,
over to tell her to shut the fuck up. They're not here, basically.
yeah. It's interesting because in our Flock episode, we were talking about the meaning of the song and talking about the lyrics and stuff. And it was very much someone looking back at this relationship, this very intense, not just sexual, but deeply connected relationship in a kind of a wistful way, almost like they were reflecting on it. It's over. And so that's kind of how their relationship feels too. Like it very much embodies that.
Well, and he had kind of forced her out again. He didn't want her anywhere near them. He wasn't going to accept their relationship at all anymore. And she finally just gave up after she found out all of the secrets from her mom. She told him, and she was like, "Okay, I'm done."
Girl was gutted. No one told her anything. Not her
Mhm.
father, not her mother, not Tobias, not Dom, not Sean, not anybody. She was just gutted and felt like no one was at bat for her. So I totally feel her there.
And so she left and she set herself up again. She has to put herself back together so many times from their love story, it's not even funny. And
Mm-hmm.
she put herself back together again. One of the scenes we haven't talked about, though, is, I forgot his first name, but Jason or Seagal or something like that. Siegel?
Jerry Siegel.
Jerry Siegel. Um, she gets him. Her and Ryan get him. And there's a scene where Ryan's office is here, her office is here, and then Tobias's office is here. Tobias knows Ryan's in love with her. Now she knows Ryan's in love with her. She's in love with Tobias, and they're all glass, right? They can all see everybody. And Ryan comes in and he's like, "We've got him. We've got him." And tells her that he's on the phone. And Jerry's on the phone pissed off because she has torpedoed him. And he is threatening her, and she's like, "I'm not my dad's daughter. I'm not afraid of you.
She's
Come
got
at
some
me.
cojones.
Come at me if you want to." And Tobias is again so afraid for her because he comes in, he's like, "He's not somebody you want to mess with. He's worse than your dad." And she's like, "I know, I went for the head, just like you taught me to." And she tells him she's not afraid. I love that scene because you do see a little bit of the old Tobias in there. You see like a hint at life for their love story right there. But he's so good at ruining all those hints of life.
I will say, despite all the terrible things happening in this book and all the times they leave Cecilia hanging, I did enjoy Tobias, like watching that love and care bloom and grow between them, just because it was always laced in snark and borderline hatred. It was always bordering love hate between them. There was a scene where he first makes dinner for her and she's like, "You can cook?" He was like, "No, everybody has to go to the grocery store to buy food." And he's making her dinner. And do you remember when he tells her, fucking thank you, when she like pours him a bottle of like a glass of wine or something? He's just like, "Fucking thank you." And then they look at each other and just start laughing because that's just that's the dynamic between the two of them, is they're always in denial and having to just push each other's buttons and fight it out all the time. And there was whenever this is when she got really drunk, right? And he took her home. This
She's
scene,
drunk at Eddie's bar.
she's at Eddie's bar, which is a no-no, and Eddie knows this is a no-no because she's not allowed in this bar because Tobias owns this bar. But she decides, "Fuck you guys, I'm gonna sit here and drink because I damn want to," right? So
And
she gets
if he's not
real
going to give her the
wasted.
drink, she is going to provide her own. She pulls out the bottle. He's like, "You're not allowed to do that here." And she's like, "Well, if you're not going to let me drink,
Yeah.
I'm going to do it."
And this is when some dude at the bar comes up and sits beside her and just starts hitting on her and starts pressuring to take things to the next level. And this is the exact moment that Tobias walks into this bar and she's just telling this guy, you need to go now. If you value your life, you need to fucking leave now. And he books it out of there when he sees who's breathing at the door.
Even Eddie's like, that's not the chick you want to be hitting on right now.
No, this is Big Boss's girl. But even after he drops her off at home and he refuses to cross that line because he's with Alicia, and then he comes back drenched in the rain, and I pretty much think they just ended up having sex right there in the foyer or something on a table or something like that. Or was it the dining room table? I can't remember what it was. But he said he broke things off with Alicia, and he just, whatever he said, it was the impact of, I just need to get this out of my system or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it does not work.
No, again, he thinks he can get things out of his system because that was what the first time was supposed to be, is him getting it out of his system. And she saw him break himself while he was trying to break her. There is one, he speaks a lot of French. And I thought that's what you were going for with that scene after she got drunk, because he starts telling her that he still loves her, basically, but in French, thinking she can't understand still. But she had learned even more French since she's been gone. But there's a scene when she can't understand French where they're talking about her relationship with Dom and Sean and how it was basically a phase. And I looked up what this French sentence was, because it's the only one in the fucking book that is not spelled out what it means. And so I looked it up. She asked him if he was jealous, and he said no. And she told him, I told you all of my truths, or I was truthful with you. And he said, so am I. And then he spoke this French sentence, and the French sentence was basically, I don't want to be a phase for you, so I'm not jealous of them. That sentence alone made me fall for him. And I was Team Tobias until he fucking pushed her out.
Here comes Tara's disdain and resentment.
Because how can you say something like that?
People are complicated.
And then not just be honest with her a little bit.
They're not honest with themselves. That's the problem here. They're not being honest with themselves. All of the times, yeah, that was the one moment they don't fucking translate it, and it's the one that holds the most weight for him. Every time he spoke French to her, he had some of the most swoon-worthy scenes. I loved them getting together like that.
I have a question. In the book reading, did they actually pronounce the French?
Yes. So I'm going to call out something. Joe Arden is the voice actor who does all of the accents. He does the British accent for Colin. He does the French accent. He has a very slight kind of ambiguous accent for Dom. But I will say, I'm not going to go into details here, but Joe Arden is problematic as a person recently. While I think he did a great job at doing the different voices and the French accents especially, I hope the next person can bring them to life just as well. So,
well, now I kind of want to hear the book, but also not, because I don't want to.
The way I justified it in my head was, well, I'm buying this audiobook. A little piece of it will go to Joe Arden, but I'm supporting Kate. And if she gets new actors on a new audiobook recording, I'll go ahead and get that one too to support her. So just putting that out there if you worry about that kind of thing.
Okay.
But it was good. It's worth a listen. You like your accents.
I do. And I was sitting there trying to pronounce these sentences in my head, and I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I think it took some away from the book for me, that I couldn't read in French.
I'm trying to imagine Tara just pronouncing this with how she thinks.
Well, I wasn't reading out loud. It was all in my head, so it would just be a confused look on my face, like.
I mean, it looked hot on the page, and it sounded hot in my ear. So
yeah.
But yes.
And then we end, like Sandra said, with Tobias coming back and playing not only, what is it, K by Cigarettes After Sex, and then also father figure. which is what she blared for him because he was being such a douchebag in the car as they're driving to her house that she set up after she dreamed a life with Dom. Like what Dom's life would be like when he told her he didn't have a plan for the future. She dreamed a house after that. And that's the house she lives in.
For the puppy.
Named Beau.
Oh yeah, she did name it Beau.
It's a little French bulldog named Beau.
That's right.
So Dom and Tobias's dad, for all intents and purposes. And she has a little piece of Dom with her, the house. She has a little piece of Sean, because I still believe Sean is the one who gave her the necklace. And now she has Tobias, hopefully. And that is where we kind of leave off.
Yeah, didn't this one end very kind of opposite to Flock? It seemed like it was at a pretty good, healthy place.
Mm-hmm.
And for all of the people reading this for the first time who haven't read the last book, obviously you're thinking something like, what else could possibly happen in the next book? And from non-spoilery, what I feel like the third book felt very long because there was a lot of character-driven growth and development happening, right?
One of the best quotes from the entire fucking series is in this third book.
You
and
remember?
It's one of the ones that it gets you. And it's the one that I see the most associated with this book series.
I mean, speaking of quotes, there were a few memorable ones in this book, Exodus.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them were in a much sadder kind of context and stuff, especially when she's pining after Tobias, dwelling on things that happened with Dom.
I like the morally gray characters who will burn the world down for their princess, and that is what the quote is in the next book, that I'm just like, ha ha, be still my heart.
That one's not popping off the top of my head, but
Well, I can give it to you later.
Tobias was so doom and gloom in this book, though. He kept saying things like, we don't get a happy ending, we get an ending, things like that. I just wanted to smack him for being so tall and smart and hot and handsome. You're so fucking stupid. Just wake the hell up.
You can have it if you want, dumbass.
But no, he wants to wait and put all his plans in motion and then get with Alicia, bitch. No, I shouldn't hate on Alicia. It's really none of her fault.
No. I hate on Tessa, though.
I do hate on Tessa. I just didn't like how Tessa treated Cecilia, meeting her. You know, because Cecilia was always kind to her, got her shop on the radar, was, you know, being a good patron of her boutique and everything. And then Tessa has to put all that baggage in there. But anywho. Oh, you know, there's a scene in this that it made the Sean stuff more impactful when they reunite at the end. And it's when she meets up with Melinda and they eat at the place called Pit Stop, which is owned by Sean's parents. And it has like all of the old photographs of him as a child up around the... it's just... My feelings about Sean and Dom are so complicated.
I'm fine with Dom now. He's dead.
Oh my god!
That sounded worse than I meant it to be.
Yeah, that was bad.
The way he died, even if he hadn't died, but the fact that he was there to save her and he told his truth in that moment. Like, he communicated with her in a way none of them have done so far besides fucking Dom. This is going to sound worse, but I wish Sean had died instead.
Oh, how dare you? Not Sunshine Boy.
Because Dom had finally communicated, and then seconds later, he's gone.
Wasn't it heartbreaking, though, how when Sean walked in on Dominic dying, that he just burst into tears and was just beside himself in grief, too? I think that's what really killed me as well, was Sean's reaction to it. I mean, these people are close.
I wish nobody had died.
Did it have to be this kind of story, Kate? Huh? Did it?
But I really appreciated Dom letting her in a little bit. And I feel like Sean did at the end of this book. And so I'm a little bit better with Sean, except for the fucking timeline. That still annoys me. But he did let her in. He shared some of his secrets. Even if he didn't outright say them, he shared. And I appreciated that in both of them. So I can live with both of them except for the timeline. That's going to be my caveat until I die. But I'm not okay with Tobias still. He's going to have to grovel.
I like it. What did you think of the epilogue scene with Sean taking his son Dom, who I think is 14 at the time or something like that, out on a ride in the car? It was just a very quick, like serious kind of scene.
I didn't read that. My book didn't have that.
What do you mean it didn't have that? Did you read it on Kindle Unlimited?
Yes, hold on. I stopped at the author note. No, it
No,
doesn't
there's
have
an
it on
epilogue.
no.
Right here.
But on Kindle Unlimited, it doesn't have it.
What?
So no, I did not get to read this gem of an epilogue where little Dom is taken out by Sean.
Yeah, this epilogue is Sean's POV. My phone buzzes again on the nightstand, and I silence it and lift to sit stretching my neck. Jesus, Tessa groans, burrowing deeper into her pillow. Is that French son of a bitch not aware there's a time difference? He doesn't care. I always get so frustrated. It's like a love-hate thing whenever authors put bonus content in different editions of books, right? Because you don't want to have to buy all of the editions of the book to get the same story. But also, we were talking about how the whole series is being published for broader reach. They are going to have bonus scenes in it too. So, just FYI, if there are other Kindle Unlimited readers out there who plan on picking up a physical copy, the Kensington editions do have bonus scenes in them.
So I hope you enjoyed reading this book, whether it is the new released editions or the old version that apparently does not have an epilogue in Kindle Unlimited. Hopefully
Yeah.
you have some friends who have the epilogue, or I mean, hit Sandra up. She'll take some pictures of it for you, I'm sure. I'm gonna make her take pictures for me so I can read it. But hopefully you enjoyed this. We will pick back up with the finish line in a couple of weeks because we are finishing The Mist Thief for this month's, what is it? Book club?
Amazon.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Book club. Amazon Book Club. Have fun reading, guys.
Thank you for being here, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.